All right, YouTube, we are live. This is the GoatCast podcast for December 10th. Was in Vegas last week, and I know you guys enjoyed my man Big Nige, Casual, Zeno, talking up some good stuff about the Bucks. So thanks to Casual and Zeno for showing up last week, filling in while I was spending a whole bunch of money that I didn't have. But yeah, Vegas, you better bring a Brinks truck if you want to go to Vegas. Let me just tell you that. But glad to be back. Haven't been here the last 2 weeks. The other week my machine went crazy, so I couldn't get on for long. So it's good to be back. And we got the man of the hour, Big Nige here. What's going on, Big Nige?
I'm good, chilling. Next week I got PTO, so I'm just pushing through this week.
So you off all next week?
I'm off. Well, I'm off all next week, and then I'm remotely working pretty much the rest of the year until the new year. So, looking forward to that.
When you make big money like that, you can do stuff like that. Us little men, we got to go to work. But with that said, we got some people that got to go to work tonight, and that's the participants in the NBA Cup knockout rounds. Now, if y'all didn't get a chance to see it, go back and watch our NBA Cup preview. We went through each group and figured out who we thought was going to win. How'd you do, Big Nige? Because I did pretty good. How'd you do?
I don't think I did too hot. I'll be honest with you. Most of my picks kind of fell through the wayside. I mean, I will say that the Warriors, they were my pick. They did good. I did pick the Thunder to move on, which, they're going to be in a contention with the Mavs. And I didn't really see the Hawks, to be honest. I know I had the Knicks. I know I had the Knicks, but they didn't look too very hot. But either way, I think I was like, all right. I wasn't great though.
Okay. Well, yeah, I picked the Hawks, and I feel pretty good about that pick. Picked Houston, Dallas, and one other team I can't remember. But yeah, I feel good about my picks, and I picked the Bucks. So let's get into these knockout rounds. I believe all 4 will be tonight, or is it 2 tonight and 2 Friday?
It's 2 tonight, 2 tomorrow.
2 tomorrow. Okay, so the knockout rounds will be tonight and tomorrow. So let's preview these big time matchups for the all encompassing NBA Cup championship. So we'll start with the Bucks, and it's the Bucks and Orlando Magic, who unfortunately lost another key player. They're already down. Paolo Banchero. Franz Wagner is now out indefinitely. Do the Bucks have enough to take them out? Do the Magic, can they, pull off what would be a big time highway robbery if they could win this one?
I think for this one, it's the Bucks game to lose. I mean, it's in Milwaukee. They have a pretty good record at home. They do struggle on the road, so that's something that you want to take notice of as you go further on into the Cup games. But in terms of a home game against the Magic, who have been really good this season, but you're without 2 of your best players, I don't really see a way for the Magic to win this, barring a Giannis injury or barring a Dame stinker. I think right now the odds are like Milwaukee's like a 72% chance to win this game. So, I mean, nobody's picking the Magic to win this game. I know I certainly ain't. You're out 2 of your best guys. I mean, Jalen Suggs can do some things, obviously. The center, Goga, whatever. I'm just going to call him Goga because I don't remember his last name. But Goga, you got a couple good pieces, but it's not going to be enough to take down, perennial MVP finalist Giannis, and, of course, Dame's rolling. So, yeah, no. I got the Bucks, and it's probably going to be at least by 10 points.
Yeah, with Orlando, who's going to do the scoring? They're down Franz Wagner, down Paulo. They're not a high-scoring team. They're a solid defensive team, so they have that to lean on. But who's going to get you the baskets? Jalen Suggs can't do it by himself. So, I don't know who else. KCP. I don't know who else you can look to get you major points, especially down a potential all-star in Franz. So yeah, I just don't see Orlando doing too much in this one. They'll make it. I think they'll make it interesting early, but as long as the Milwaukee Bucks show up, they should take this one with little problems. So let's stay in the East with the New York Knicks and Atlanta Hawks, the surprise team out of the East. Who do you think will get out of this one? I think this will be a good one.
I think for me personally, since okay, if this game was tonight, I would probably have a different answer, considering that
Mm-hmm.
The New York Knicks came off a pretty hard fought overtime W against the Toronto Raptors, and it was a barn burner. And because of that, I would have picked Atlanta to win if they were to play tonight. But do you give the Knicks a little bit more rest? You get to work through Towns. Towns is at MVP level this season. He's just getting better and better, getting more rest with this team, even taking closing shots as we saw in that last night's game. So they're starting to figure it out, and they're starting to pick up their stride defensively. They do have a couple lapses there to still address, but against a team like the Hawks, when New York is home, I think that'll give them the edge. I don't think this is going to be a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. I think Atlanta matches up well with them in terms of like wing depth and like physicality. I know Reese Shea had a really good 30-plus point performance. I think he had like 33. He had a pretty good game. I think they'll key in on him as this is a more high-stakes game for the New York Knicks. They were just probably when I watched that game, they just looked like they were kind of like feeling out the young fella. You see a lot of scouting reports about his jump shot not being the strongest. So they just let him really shoot it, for lack of better terms. Trae Young is probably going to bring it, of course. But I think the combination of the Knicks being at home, the way they've been rolling, and the fact that the Atlanta Hawks just don't have enough to match them for 4 straight quarters, I think I'm going to give the Knicks the edge, and I think I'm going to say under 10 points, but they're going to win the game.
Okay, before I get into mine, a quick question. If the Atlanta Hawks get within the 3-4 range, could you see Trae Young being put in the MVP race?
I'm going to say no. And not because Trae Young is an all-world and what he's been doing, especially in the playmaking department, has gone completely unlooked, in my opinion. But when you look at that, like just getting them to a 3-4 seed would at least warrant him to be in top 5 in terms of MVP discussion. But when you look at him and you look at this other guy, Nikola Jokic, and where he might fall in terms of the ranking, like Jokic is the best player in the league by far right now this season. Now, where he finishes in the standings will really determine if he's going to really walk away with that 4th MVP. But yeah, if Trae Young gets this roster, which is not that bad of a roster in Atlanta, to the 3-4 seed, I think it'll warrant MVP discussions, but I don't think he'll get the nod because there are going to be other guys who have been playing more consistently from the start of the season to the end, and just having a better team around him that will uplift their MVP cases compared to his.
Yeah, makes sense. I just, he's putting up some big numbers over there, and they're winning. So I just felt like maybe that name will start, creeping into the MVP discussion. As far as the Knicks and Hawks, this is another game where the top team should win. Karl-Anthony Towns, who do the Hawks have? Can Clint Capella stop him? I guess if Cat completely changes his game and tries to play on the block, but other than that, I don't. Clint Capella's not going to do nothing much against him. But Atlanta, when I was looking at their roster, they got 8 guys in double figures, so scoring is not a problem for them, and especially with the way Trae Young's playmaking right now. But the Knicks are just a better team overall. They can have lapses though. So if they have any type of lapse tonight, the Hawks can capitalize on that and win. But ultimately, I think with Cat, Brunson, those two, as long as they bring their A game, it should be I I won't say an easy win, but it should be a win for the Knicks. Mikal Bridges has been playing better. I think he's finally kind of rounded out into that New York scheme, and I just think they're finally turning the corner. And I think they're about where they need to be. Will that lead to a championship? I don't know, but yeah, I think the Knicks win this one, and we have a big clash out east between the Bucks and the Knicks, a potential Eastern Conference Finals.
Maybe semis.
Okay,
Maybe
we'll go as high as semis. We won't go all the way to conference finals, especially with them not the Clippers, but the Cleveland Cavs and those Boston Celtics out there. So yeah, so let's go out east. I mean, go out west, where we have the Houston Rockets against the Golden State Warriors. They just played while I was in Vegas. I was watching that. The Warriors did beat them, but this Houston Rockets team is really, really good. Kind of fell out of the second place. Dallas kind of took their spot there, but they're still a team that I think they can land in that 2 through 4 range when all is said and done, and we get into playoff positioning. But who do you have between the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors? Both teams playing really well so far this season.
And I don't remember, is Golden State at home for this game?
I think Houston's at home.
Okay. Well, I would say I'm going to favor Houston in this matchup. What I have been seeing so far, because I haven't watched much of Houston. I'm not going to pretend like I watch every game every season. Like, that's just unrealistic. But from what I have seen from Houston, they are a different team this year. And when I did my preseason predictions of them, and I got flack in the comments for pronouncing some players' names wrong and not being as high on the Rockets as some people would have been. I think they've proved me wrong. I think the strides that they've taken as a team, they starting to call Fred VanVleet Steady Freddy. You get Jalen Green and what he's been doing on a bit more consistent basis this year. We're seeing the strides of Alfred Sengun. I hope I got it right that time. Maybe I didn't. Oh well. But even guys like Torrey Easton, right? Like the defensive, like Swiss Army knife type guy who he has developed himself into becoming. I think that bodes well for them when you talk about them taking that next step and getting these pieces, as Amen Thompson as well. He's another like defensive Swiss Army knife guy. You can put him on wing or on guards in some wings. You can put Torrey Easton on those big wings that you would need to stop a guy like Luka, LeBron, KD, guys who you need those kind of defenders to put on those big wings out west. And when you translate that to against a team like the Warriors, and they will give them a fit. Steph Curry, albeit isn't playing, MVP type stuff that we're accustomed to seeing, him carry the load. Steve Kerr is elected to kind of go with a more, honestly, kind of feels more like a college approach in terms of the rotations, going almost 12 deep. And even though it's kind of questionable of if he should continue doing that, that's just what they've been doing so far. And it's worked for the first part of the season. I think second half of the season, or at least this like last 10 games, maybe he needs to shorten the rotation a little bit so guys like Steph aren't sitting with like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, for crying out loud. But I say all that. I digress. I think the key tonight is, unfortunately, I think it's going to be a guy like Dillon Brooks, right? Because we understand what he is as a defender and antagonist. But I think when he is playing his best game, hitting his shots, playing solid defense, being physical, getting to the cup, I think it moves this Houston Rockets team in a better fashion, in a way that they take the grittiness and they build upon it. Then you see Jalen Green, you see Sengun, you see Fred VanVleet. Like, you see those guys kind of uplift their games with the chippiness, right? And we've already seen Fred VanVleet cuss out refs after ref for getting calls wrong, but that's just what a guy like Dillon Brooks does, is he makes you want to challenge not only the opponent, even the refs, And I say all that stuff because it's not like I want to take anything from Golden State and what they've been doing so far this season, but I think they will not overcome this Houston Rockets team for this knockout game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts at the head of the snake. Ime Udoka, he's got that toughness that kind of trickles down to everybody else. We knew who Dylan Brooks was, but it's like you said, Fred Van Vliet and other guys. They're, you know, Ime, he doesn't hold his tongue at all. So he's out there with that tough exterior, and then it just permeates throughout the rest of the guys. Unfortunately, Buddy Hield has kind of fallen back down into his usual self. At the beginning of the season, he was otherworldly the way he was shooting and just contributing for the Golden State Warriors. Hasn't quite been that. He hasn't been given that kind of effort these last couple of games. So you could kind of take him out the equation. Steph has had some hit and miss games. Andrew Wiggins has been pretty good. Steve Kerr's been putting Kuminga in starting over Draymond. So that's a weird lineup. I think I don't know. It's kind of work, but I just think Houston is a more complete team. Steve Kerr seems to be experimenting more and is getting mixed results. He's got a solid team, but I just don't think, if Houston's hitting on all cylinders, and I believe they're home, I don't think Golden State has enough to beat this young, tough team. If this was a 7-game series, it'd be completely different. You have to look at the veteranship, but a 1-game knockout, I got to go with Houston. I got to go with the younger team, the more hungry team. Those guys want that little $500K to put in their pockets. So I think they're going to come out. They just got smacked the other night. They're going to, want to get that back, and they're at home. Udoka's going to get in their heads. They're going to go out there, play some physical, tough basketball. I think they walk away with a win. Now for the main event, the main match that everybody wants to see in the first knockout round, the Dallas Mavericks versus the OKC Thunder. This is a rematch from the second round of the playoffs this past season. Of course, Dallas got past them, went into the NBA Finals. So OKC has been the breakout team out west. They are still number one. They're doing this without Chet. Hartenstein's back, but can the OKC Thunder get past almighty Luka and those Dallas Mavericks who've been playing well? They're on the 7-game winning streak right now.
This one's going to be a really good game to watch. I would definitely circle this game on your calendars. This is going to be a must-see game. Luka coming back, he's looked very well in these last 7-8 games, maybe 10 even more. But he's looked very good after he got back from his injury. It looks like he's slightly in better shape, taking more care of the ball. Defensively, I'm not seeing too many declines from earlier. So, as long as he's serviceable, sure. But getting into this game and how this is going to be between the Mavs and Thunder, the Mavs destroyed them on the glass the last time they played. I'm pretty sure it was like 53-29. Albeit the Thunder only lost by 2, but I just think those extra possessions definitely helped Dallas when they didn't have Luka, and they were finding they were struggling on offense at times in those games. In that game, to just beat them up the way they did on the glass. Now again, they didn't have a center in OKC. They didn't have Hartenstein. They didn't have Chet, and they didn't have the other Williams. Mm-hmm. So you bring in Hartenstein, that addresses the rebounding edge. I think obviously having Luka obviously does a lot of great things for you as Dallas. You could even argue they look better without him. The shots were distributed. Guys like Najee Marshall turned into prime Klay Thompson. I don't know. If I really had to pick one, because this is really a toss-up, I'm going to say OKC takes this one. I think when you can address the discrepancy in the rebounds, both teams didn't shoot too terribly crazy from the three-point line. I think OKC was 14 for 42, shooting about 33%, and Dallas was 11 for 27. So they shot about 40%. it's really a toss up. These teams are pretty evenly matched,
Yep.
but I'm going to give the edge to the Thunder. Even though Dallas has been rolling, I'm going to give the edge to the Thunder. I think again both teams match up very well, but I'm gonna give the slight edge to OKC because I think they're hungrier and I think they want it a bit more than Dallas does.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I can echo a lot of what you're saying. I think the catalyst for this game will be Kyrie Irving. If he shows up like the Kyrie that we know and love, he's looking like an all-star this year, actually. If he shows up, then I think this is a winnable game for Dallas. And like you said, the thing about Dallas without Luka is guys like PJ Washington get to play a little more freely. And I thought he was really good when Luka was out because he's not waiting for the ball like he has to do when Luka's there. So it's one of those games where you got to kind of wait and see what kind of style they're going to play. If Luka is going to handle the ball and just not ball hog, but just be the main facilitator, main ball handler, then I think the Thunder will get off to a big start. I think Dallas will have to play from behind a lot, and I think the Thunder can pull it off. If Luka distributes the ball a little more and kind of lets Kyrie handle it a little more and do some of that, I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a nip-tuck game the entire time. But either way, I think the Thunder just have a little more. I just think they're playing with a lot of confidence. I don't think they were super confident in the playoffs just because it was new to them. And, there was a lot of pressure on them as being the number one seeded team. So now they're the number one seeded team, but, there's no pressure on them. It's just one game, and they can win that game. And I think they will win that game. I think the Thunder will take this, and I think they'll take the West, but I'm sure we'll talk about that next week, the semifinals. But I think we agreed on all of them, but I think Dallas can win this, but it's got to be, they have to start well early. If they don't start good early, I think this game gets out of hand and they just can't, they'll bring it down, but it's just not feasible for them to win if they let SGA and them boys get out early. But with that said, let's talk about Luka's buddy, who's putting up some numbers that are quite insane. Can Nikola Jokic win his fourth NBA MVP? Many people are saying there's voters fatigue, things like that. But when you look at these numbers, and it's still early, but he's averaging 32.3 points, 13.6 rebounds, 10.2 assists on 56.1 field goal percentage, 50% from three. That's insanity right there. So can Nikola Jokic win his fourth MVP in 5 years?
Give or take.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, this question really has to be answered with another question. Okay. You're asking, can he win his fourth MVP? And everybody's immediate answer, sure. I mean, why not? But the real question should be, can the Denver Nuggets get Nikola Jokic some help? If they can do that, and albeit their hands are pretty tied because they don't have any first round picks. They have 1 second round pick. They are under luxury tax and under the first apron. And the only tradable contract right now currently is Michael Porter Jr., at least with value. And to me, it's going to be hard because right now I think they are sitting currently at the 7th seed. They're 12-10. And I don't see a lot of 7th seed MVPs. So that's why I really pose this question is, can they get him some help? Because we understand this roster. I'm not saying this roster is bad. Obviously you got Jamal Murray, you got Jokic. You don't have the replacement for KCP, but Christian Braun is low-key in the running for most improved player. Obviously you got Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. You got the works, but you don't really have a bench. and you don't really have
Russell
a
Westbrook.
true. I mean, I think Russell Westbrook is a starter at this point. I think the way he plays when he's in that starting lineup, I think they should warrant starting him full time. That's a discussion for another time. But I will say it really depends if they can get him some help because he's got the numbers. He's got video game numbers, right? He is head and shoulders the best player in basketball. I don't give a damn what Giannis has to say about it or Shea. We understand he's the best. But will he win the MVP? I just don't know. With them currently being at 7th, I can't see it because I think somebody like Shea or another person, like, I don't know, maybe I'm not saying Cat would win it, but I mean, they're the 4th seed, he would get some looks at it. And, Giannis, of course, he's got something to say, even though he's
No love for Tatum.
Tatum is kind of in that same, when we had that further discussion about, the best players, and like Tatum's on a really good team, but he's never dominated in the fashion that a lot of voters would like to see. Not like people who actually watch the game, but like the voters are more glamorized by like the Luka's game, Giannis's game, because it's like a clear hierarchy of like, I'm the best player and I'm going to take the bulk of the shots, or the ball's going to be in my hands the majority of the time. You don't really see that, right, with with Shea in that sense, and you don't see it with Tatum in that sense because they have really good pieces around them to kind of spell for any lapses they have at any given time. But yeah, it really just depends on him getting that help. But I did want to flip the question back to you, where you can answer obviously if he's going to win his 4th MVP. But if he does get his 4th MVP, does that creep him in the top 5 all-time centers if he gets that 4th MVP?
Interesting you say that because I just dropped a video about that. But to answer the first question, I'm gonna say it like this: if Denver is not in the 2 through, I'm gonna say 4 range, no. Even with these numbers, he will not win it. Just because, I mean, you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar who won one and his team didn't even make the playoffs, but that's an anomaly. So unless those numbers, I'm going to say they're not sustainable. Even with the team he has, I can see some of those rebounding numbers drop. Those field goal percentages are just insane. So you've got to come down to the means a little bit. I mean, you just got to think 50% from 3 for big. That's crazy. But I mean, he's doing it. So his box plus minus, his VORP are just insane right now. He's head and shoulders above everybody. So he is the best player in the NBA. But what's going to hurt him is this. I was thinking about this on my drive home is, if you think about it, the Denver Nuggets, of course, were good in 2023. They won the championship. Last year, they were better than that 2023 team as far as the regular season. It hurt them some that they got second place, but they were really tied for first place. There was a 3-way tie. So they got better. And many people thought losing Bruce Brown and Jeff Green, they were going to be worse. They're actually better. But, of course, in the playoffs, that was a different story. So this year, only losing KCP really, and them having this drastic of a drop-off, you think that that's going to hurt his case, because even with those numbers, you're not winning. And you basically have your same team minus 1 player. And it's not like KCP was just lighting them up. He was a great defender. They do miss him defensively. But, I think that's going to be a key when thinking about who's going to win, because if you can't sustain that level of winning as the Denver Nuggets and you're putting up those numbers, I mean, yeah, you can point the fingers at the other guys, but at the end of the day, not much has changed, and you can't get W's. So I think that's going to hurt him if they miraculously get to that 2, 3, 4 range. I think he's locked in for it. If he's still scoring 32, it may be 12 rebounds, 9 point something assist, he's going to win it, because that's just, like you said, those are video game numbers he's putting up, and he's doing it. He's making it look easy. I mean, he got 56, 57 something the other night.
I think it was 56.
and a loss. Now, if he had won, you might as well go ahead and give him the MVP. But 50-something center for a center, and just killing them. You got to look at that in a different light. But I think he won't win it because I don't think they're going to be in the 2 through 4 range. They're just not good enough this year, and the West has gotten better, even though it doesn't look it when you're looking at some of these teams. But I think the West is better. I think that's going to hurt Jokic in the long run. And what was the second question? The second question is, will he go into the top 5 centers of all time? No. No.
You don't?
As much as I'm a huge Jokic fan, but I can't put him over Hakeem. You saw what Hakeem's done. Won back-to-back championships. He actually won the toughest championship in all of NBA history. So that says a lot because you look at his team, no top 75 players. He did have Clyde, I believe, the 95 season, but either way, he had a tough road to get there. He got there, won. Can't put him over there. Shaq, of course. You can't put him over a guy that's got 3 Finals MVPs. So I think he's on the cusp.
You think he can surpass Wilt? I mean, Wilt don't got the hardware like the rest of these guys do.
I mean, Wilt for most of his career averaged 30 and 22. So I mean,
just playing devil's advocate.
I mean, he's got what, 2 championships? I think he's got 2 with the Lakers.
Let me double check that.
And
he's got 2 titles. 1 Finals MVP, 2 titles, 4 MVP.
He only won 1 Finals MVP with that team, but that was old Wilt back then. He wasn't quite what he was. But I don't think you can because of just what he was, one of the most dominant players of all time. Bill Russell, of course, historically, you can't put Jokic over him. He's got the numbers. He's got the numbers, but he doesn't have near the championships or hardware. And then, of course, Kareem, it's going to take him a little while to reach Kareem status. But it's hard for me to see him. He's on the cusp. I think him and Hakeem are battling out for that 5th spot. But I just think Jokic is just a little bit missing a little bit.
I don't know. I would probably I'm gonna disagree with you. I'm not gonna go too long because I know we're running over. But I will say if he gets his 4th MVP, he has to be in the top 5. Like, as to who I bump out, I'll save that for another video. But if he wins his 4th MVP, I'm gonna have to put him in the top 5. I just can't overlook it no more.
Now, who you taking out of the top 5?
Well, that's what I said. I don't want to, because if I go into detail, then we gonna go way over time. But if I had to pick somebody off the top of my head, one guy, I'm taking Wilt, man. Listen, I'm taking Wilt. I'm taking Wilt.
You going to get killed in the comments. You're putting Nikola Jokic over Wilt Chamberlain.
If he wins another MVP, now, okay, again, we're talking about the rest of his career. Again, we're not going to deep dive it, but we're talking about 4 MVPs, and I'm going to say he wins at least 1 or 2 more chips before his career is over. I think that's fair. So if you do, I'm just saying the 4th MVP with the totality of his career. But when you ask me, when he gets that 4th MVP, in my mind, I will have him in the top 5. Now, who he specifically narrows out, if it be Wilt's my first choice, but I'm going to give it a further look. But off the top of my head, I would have him moving Wilt out of my top 5. That's all.
Really quick, because I know I got to go. But who are your top 5 centers?
On the spot, give me Kareem, give me Shaq, give me Hakeem, give me Bill Russell, and give me Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay, so
those are my top 5.
That's not your order, but that's just.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's about my order. I would have Kareem 1. I'd have Shaq 2. I would have Hakeem.
They're gonna get you in yeah.
I could have Hakeem 3, Wilt 4, and Bill Russell 5.
Okay, well, that's an interesting list. Mine's a little different, but Okay, yeah, that's a discussion for another time.
Hope
Nikola
I'm not
Jokic,
missing somebody.
because
This
he's
is on the
definitely gonna have to
spot.
win another championship. If he doesn't win
Yeah.
another champion, say if he gets fourth MVP but no more championships, there's no way he's in the top 5 centers of all time.
I just think his
And
numbers, man, like the playmaking side, like again, we gonna talk about this more, but I'm just like what he is as an offensive player, like as crazy as Wilt's numbers are, like the dominance that Nikola Jokic has displayed in today's era, with
I
not
get it.
only just his scoring but his passing ability, it's just going to be hard to take it. It's going to be hard to not have him in the top 5. If he wins another MVP, It's going to be hard. I will have to take Will out of my
He
top 5.
dominates in a different type of way. It's not it's not like you're watching Shaq play or in his day Wilt. It's watching someone play basketball that's huge that can do Shaq type things almost. Not can't jump like Shaq, but he can dominate in the post, but he can do things that just you don't see centers. You've never seen centers do. And I think that's what kind of skews him because he's doing something so different from most centers and doing it so well that it's hard to deny him access. But with that said, Wilt is the closest to him when it comes to assists as a center. Wilt
No,
spent a
and
whole season just working on his assists. So, you know, I guess that's kind of how you're throwing
well, and
parallels.
Jokic is the out of all these guys, Jokic is the least athletic. Like you have to throw
I
him
mean,
in there
that's
on that.
true.
Like
That's
he's
true.
doing this strictly skill set, not just being massively bigger than everybody like Shaq or Will. You know, not the most like he is very skilled. Like Hakeem is very skilled as well. And he's not the defender that Hakeem was. But when we talk about just sheer offensive production, he's right there with Hakeem as well, just in different facets. And you throw in the playmaking, even though Hakeem was not a bad passer himself. But yeah, okay. I'm gonna just go ahead and divert it to the last topic. Let me just get out of here real quick because I know because this could be a whole thing. Trust me. I
And
brought this
we're
question specifically,
gonna plug Friday, so we'll plug Goat Talk. But
but we
but
got to
yeah,
shout
let's
out
want
Chris
to.
Paul.
Okay, good. Yep.
We're gonna shout Chris Paul out for passing Jason Kidd for second all time in assists. And we have the topic like is CP3 the point guard as since he has just passed Jason Kidd, has he cracked your top 5 list for all-time point guards being that high in assists?
Yes, because we don't look at all of Chris. I went back and looked at Chris Paul's career, and he doesn't have the scoring numbers of a Steph. He doesn't have the rings, all these other things. But you look at that, he's a 10-time All Defensive player. That's a lot of. I mean, of course, it's spread throughout first, second, and third, but that's a lot of all defense. So he defends. He's now in the top, 3 or 4 in assists. So he's playing his position. Where's Steph in that discussion? But so he's playing the point guard. He had a good run in New Orleans, had a good run with the Clippers, I guess. Had a solid run with the Rockets, Houston, with him and James Harden had a decent run. Then he led his own team, the Phoenix Suns. Yes, I believe that was CP3's team at that time, to a NBA Finals. Didn't get the job done. He's just been cursed in the playoffs. But you look at his resume. He's, I believe, a 12-time All-Star. He's almost, I believe, a 12-time All-NBA player.
It's 11-time All-NBA, 12-time
time.
All-Star, 7-time All-Defensive First Team, and he's got 2 Olympic gold medals.
Okay, so I mean, he's getting it done in all facets of the game. He's playing the point guard position like you're supposed to, I guess, in this day. That's how I feel because I'm old school. So I think you could make cases for other guys, but I would put CP3 in my top 5 point guards all time.
I'm gonna have to disagree. I'm gonna be quick about it as well, but just so I'm just gonna say this: like, obviously, in my opinion, Magic Johnson's the greatest point guard of all time.
Absolutely.
I think right after him, you got Steph. The rest of the guys, 3 through 5, you can kind of throw in a hat. You got to throw in Isaiah Thomas. You got to have Stockton somewhere in there. Probably got to have Jason Kidd or the Big O.
Jason
Somewhere
Kidd,
in somewhere in there. But I'm taking Oscar Robertson, Isaiah Thomas, Jason Kidd, Stockton. Maybe not Nash, but you get the picture. There's already 3 guys I'm taking over Chris Paul, and it's Chris Paul is phenomenal. Don't take nothing from him, but what you just highlighted, where his playoff failures haunt him, that's kind of where I have my issue. You are a top 5 point guard, but you are at the head of a lot of blown. I believe it was 2-0, 2-1 lead, something like that. I think he has the most blown playoff series where he's up at least 2 games to nothing. He comes back, and again, you are the point guard, so you do have to take some brunt of that when you talk about meltdowns in the fourth quarter, epic collapses, not getting the job done. Where he talks about Chris Paul as a point guard likes to micromanage at times, so you get to see him in the huddle, kind of trying to take over the schemes or whatever, things of that nature. So you have all those things working against you in terms of the postseason, regular season, all world, right? He might even somehow find a way to take these god-awful Spurs team. They're improved. I'm not saying they're god-awful, but he has unlocked them in a way that makes semi-similar to what he did for OKC, albeit I don't know if the Spurs will be a playoff team, but you can definitely tell the playmaking department. He's even upgraded a guy like Wemby. Like Wemby's out here almost getting triple doubles and stuff like that, just getting high assist games because of just how much he's learning from the point guard, right? But I say all that. We listed all his achievements to say you are a great point guard. I do not have you in my top 5. But if he found some way to get a championship or something, oh yeah, he's top 5 for sure. I think the only thing he's really missing with all of his playoff woes would be some kind of championship to kind of just wrap it all together.
Obviously, yeah. And he probably won't get one now that he's where he's at. Yeah. But before I jump out of here, because I got to go, but I just got to ask this question.
Okay.
What position does Allen Iverson play? Or did he play?
Pretty sure he was a shooting guard, was he not? I consider him a shooting guard. I don't consider Allen Iverson a point guard.
Other than the shooting capabilities or efficiency, what's the difference between Allen Iverson and Steph Curry?
What's the difference? You said in terms that's not. You said
other than the shooting aspect, what's the difference between them and what they did on the court?
The off-ball movement that Steph generates, the looks that his gravity alone. They're not. I think he's a better playmaker than Allen Iverson for sure too. You could throw a hat in whoever you consider as a better ball handler, but I'm not really sure where you're going with this question.
I'm saying they're both combo guards. I don't consider Steph a point guard, even though that's his position by default on the court. But I see him more of an Iverson combo guard style than a, prototypical point guard. That's where I was going with it, because I feel like they score a lot of points. Like I said, Iverson can't even dream to shoot like Steph, but they usually had. He could handle the ball. He could be a point guard. For a lot of time, I thought he was, but he's more of a shooting guard. But I just feel like both of those guys are kind of combo guards. So I just don't see Steph in the same vein as Magic, as CP3, Jason Kidd, these guys. I just don't. I see him more like an Iverson guy, kind of a hybrid guard that, can play, make, and do those type of things. But I don't see him as your prototypical point guard. So it's hard for me, even though I know he's one of the top point guards of all time, it's hard for me to put him in that Just like it's hard for me to put Allen Iverson as a shooting guard because I don't see him as just your prototypical shooting guard. I see, bigger guys like D Wade, Kobe, Jordan. So I just want to say that because I just don't see Steph as what those guys are in the same vein as those guys. Was what I was
I'll give you a quick rebuttal before you leave. I think what Steph does in terms of playmaking, I mean, a lot of it can be attributed to his gravity and how much attention he, commands from the defense. But I think when you think of like your prototypical point guard, I think you look at like the selflessness, right? You think of guys who could potentially pass out of shots to get someone else involved who hasn't had a shot for like 2.5 minutes or something to that magnitude. Whereas you look at a guy like Magic will do that, Isaiah, Stockton, like all these guys, all of them could score, but they are looking to command that offense. The offense is running through them. I think you can make the same argument about Steph, right? Just because he's not patting the rock, like some of these other guards and kind of dictating the offense. Just because he's the one running off like pin down screens. His off ball movement alone is in that same kind of playmaking because you have to defend him. You have to bring 2-3 defenders at me. And it's as simple as he can make the fanciest Ole passes to the corners, to the paint. Like Steph can do, he's just a different kind of point guard, right? Where you kind of mentioned Allen Iverson, where he's not a prototypical point guard and you think of him more as a 2. And I would agree. I think he is more like a 2 in my humble opinion. But
that's what he's listed as, but I just don't see him like
Steph's selflessness is what gives him. He is still like a point guard. He just doesn't have the ball in his hands traditionally to like pat the rock to then get that dish, to get that screen and make all those reads because he's just that phenomenal of a shooter. Once he gets any daylight, it's going up. You can't say the same for anybody else on this point guard list because none of them could dream to shoot the ball like Steph Curry. So I think that's what makes him different because if he couldn't shoot the ball at this elite clip that he could, I think he would average more assists because I feel like he would have to. But because he's so great at shooting, you give him any room, it's going up and it's bottom of the net. That's just why I think he's different. But he is still a point guard in my opinion.
Okay. Well, with that, I'm gonna cheaply plug Friday night. Myself, Big Nige, hopefully Sports Talk Only. We will be back with another GOAT Talk Only. And right now, it seems like the topic will be, we're going to do the top 10 of each position. We're going to tell you guys the GOATs, who our GOATs of each position are. And so some of this back and forth tonight is a prelude to what will be going on Friday. So we can get a little more in depth with that and kind of, see where we agree, we disagree on stuff like that. But I have to go to a basketball game. My son's high school game is about to start in about 20-something minutes, so I have to jet out of here. So any last words, Big Nige?
Nope. Going to be supporting Mini Wemby from about an hour away, but I'm definitely going to get out there to one of those games at some point so we can see how baby Wemby is looking out there.
Yeah, he's up to 2.9 blocks a game. So hopefully he'll keep that energy going tonight. Got a tougher matchup. So I'm going to go critique his game and go watch that. So we will see you guys hopefully Friday. And like I said, we will have some GOAT Talk Only. And we'll be back next week with another GOATcast podcast. So we appreciate you guys. Please like, subscribe, help us out. We're trying to get to that monetization. So just help us out if you can. We appreciate everything, and we'll be back very, very soon.
All right, y'all.